Welcome back to the channel where we break down UFC fights with no fluff, just facts. If you want clean picks, you're in the right place. Let's dive into this card, fight by fight, get these picks in before the big day. First fight on the card, we have Carli Judice versus Nicole Caliari. Personally, I think Caliari Judice is going to run through Nicole. Nicole needs to get this fight on the ground. So to have any success of winning, she needs this on the ground. But I just don't think she's going to have success in doing so. Carli is too big, too long for her, and way more skilled compared to Nicole. And the level of competition faced by these two women is significantly different. You have Nicole, who has not faced any good competition, and Carli has lost to really good competition when she does lose, and Carli is looking good, especially even in her losses. So I just think this is going to be a one-way traffic for Kalari. Just bigger, longer, higher level experience where you have Nicole who needs this on the ground, and I just don't think she'll be able to get it there. So my pick is going to be Carli Judice to run through Nicole. Next fight on the card, we have making his debut, Jackson McVey versus Brunno Ferreira. I'm going to go with Jackson McVey to win this fight. You have Jackson McVey making his UFC debut against a killer opponent in Brunno Ferreira. And yes, this is his debut, and he's facing a veteran of the sport. But Jackson is going to be 7 inches taller, right? He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be 6 years younger. And I just think Jackson is a wild card. He's making his debut, so we really don't know what we are going to expect from him in the UFC. We do know that in the regional scene, he's dominating because he has a 100% finish rate. And compared to Brunno, like I said, he's just a much bigger guy. He's a huge guy compared to Brunno. And personally, I'm going to buy into the hype. I'm going with Jackson McVey to win because just because someone's making his debut doesn't mean he's not good. Just because he's dominating trash cans, he's winning these fights. And y'all remember what happened when everyone was picking Obon Elliott to beat Siak Hong Ko, right? Just because no one knew anything about Siak Hong Ko, everyone was picking Obon Elliott. We don't know much about Jackson McVey, but we know that he's good. And I'm taking a shot on him, and I think Jackson will make it tough for Brunno to close the distance in order for Brunno to land his big shots. So Brunno, he does have that walking down type of style, but Jackson will meet him head on and meet him in the middle when he has to, right? So he's not going to get backed up against the fence. And for Brunno to close that distance, it's not going to be easy for him to do so. Jackson, he seems well rounded enough. So I'm going to go with Jackson. 7 inches taller, 5-inch reach advantage, 100% finish rate coming in. He's a big wild card for this fight. Where you have Brunno who walks forward, he's very powerful, but he's undersized. And I'm just banking on Jackson McVey to have that size and pace advantage. And I see him pulling off the upset in this matchup. Next fight on the card, we have Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. Right. So my pick is going to be Ryan Spann to win this fight. Ryan, he is 1-4 in his last 5. One of those losses being to Anthony Smith, by the way. And he just got knocked out 4 months ago to Waldo Cortez Acosta 4 months ago. And you have Lukasz Brzeski, who's 1-5 in his last six. So this is the type of fight that makes me want to bash my head on a burning hot stove over and over again. You know, I'm taking Ryan Spann because he just seems like the one who's going to be more athletic out of the two. He hits harder, he's more accurate with his shots, and we have Lukasz Brzeski, who just always seems like he's a step behind in every fight. Any fight he's in, he seems like he actually doesn't know how to fight 95% of the time. He doesn't have that killer instinct. His boxing isn't where it needs to be to compete in the UFC, that's for sure. And when he does box, he leaves his chin up in the air. And not to mention that he gets hit quite often in his fights. So I'm not a fan of either of their fight styles, but Ryan should be a bit better than Lukasz, who just doesn't seem like he belongs in the UFC. So that's why I'm taking Ryan Spann. I just see him being more athletic. He's going to have more power, more accuracy, cleaner with his shots. And you have Brzeski, 1-5 in his last six, flat-footed, bad defense. Ryan Spann, 1-5 in his 1-4 in his last five. I'm taking Ryan just because he's slightly less mid, and for the reasons I just explained. So the pick is going to be Ryan. Moving on from this fight, we have Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. Prachnio. Not sure how to pronounce that. Oh, okay. Um, so my pick for this fight, it's going to be Jimmy Crute. I believe Jimmy Crute will win this fight. Saying so, Jimmy Crute has not won a fight in 5 years. It was 6 fights ago. The last time that he won, it was 2020. So he's due for a win, right? But is he going to get it? I think so. We have Marcin Prachnio, who is not a technical fighter. He's more of a brawler, I would say, than a technical fighter. But he's still a good striker because he has nice timing on his shots. He likes to throw overhands, then he likes to overwhelm you when you get hurt. He likes to rush forward when he does have you hurt. But he does get hit a lot. And the thing I like about Prachnio is that he's very kick heavy as well. At the start of the fight, he likes to invest in the leg kicks. But he tends to move away from the leg kicks as the fight goes on. But I like how he starts out heavy with the leg kicks, kind of just to gauge his distance. But I'm picking Jimmy Crute because he has speed, he has accuracy, which I think is better than Prachnio's, and he's very durable as well. That's something that he's known for. He's known for his durability, and I just would say that he's a more complete fighter than Marcin Prachnio. Jimmy Crute does like to come forward as well. They both tend to slow down towards the end, but I just think Jimmy should win at least the first 2 rounds, landing the better shots. So he might lose the third round, but I see him winning the majority of the fight and then having both of them slow down, and we don't know what's going to happen in the third round, right? So the thing about these guys is they've both been in the UFC for 7 years, and they've both been kind of mid. They both got into the UFC at the same time, and they've just shown to be nothing more than average. So I don't see any of these guys making a run in the rankings or going up to the top of their division. But out of the two, Jimmy should come out on top. That's why I'm picking him, because of his speed, his durability, and just all around a better fighter, in my opinion. We have Marcin, who's tends to be a wild brawler at times. He's hittable and he fades. He slows down towards his fight, towards the end of his fight. So I think Jimmy Crute will win the early rounds and he'll survive the third round in order to win this fight. The decision, I would say. Moving on, the next fight, we have a fight that will not go to decision, and that is Islam Dulatov versus Adam Fugitt. So I'm picking Islam Dulatov to win this fight. This should be easy work for Dulatov. He's 10 years younger. He has the whole country of Germany behind him. He should be stronger. He has great grappling, even better wrestling than uh, Adam Fugitt, so a lot faster striking. And I think he's more motivated than ever to win his UFC debut. He seems to be about his business. Like, look at his eyes. He doesn't seem like he's playing around when he's in the cage. He's on an 11 fight win streak. He's has heavy top control in his wrestling. And he's very powerful when he lands. He's quick, he's fast, and he's powerful. He's accurate as well. He seems to be very well rounded, and he has potential to really make a run in this division, I believe. So, on the other hand, we have Adam Fugitt, who I see him getting touched up a lot in this fight. I see him getting dropped even in the first round because Dulatov, he tends to finish 90% of his fights in the first round. And Adam gets hit. He does get hit. I see him getting touched up a lot in this fight. I don't expect it to be close. Right now, Adam Fugitt, he's 2-2 in the UFC, and the guys he beat, they're not great. And the guys who beat him seem to be on their way to being top contenders. Like Mike Mallet, he's doing really good right now. Michael Morales, who should be close to getting a title fight soon. And I put Islam Dulatov as the guy who should be on the side of someone who has potential to be a Mike Mallet or Michael Morales to climb the rankings. Will he ever be champion? We still have to see how he does in these next couple of fights, how he performs, what his weaknesses are, because these things tend to get exposed when you're in the UFC. But does he beat Adam Fugitt? Absolutely, he beats Adam Fugitt without question. It's without a doubt. So Islam, he's just gonna be a lot faster, a lot more powerful, and 10 years younger than him, much better than him everywhere, has so much potential. 11 fight win streak, strong wrestling as well. Fugitt, he just has these mid-level wins everywhere. His last fight, he won a split decision over someone that, you know, just as mid as he is. He gets outclassed by real prospects, and I see Islam Dulatov being a real prospect in the UFC, and I just see him dominating this fight everywhere it goes. So the pick is Islam Dulatov. Moving on, we have another prospect. This fight, it is Ateba Abega Gautier versus Robert Valentin. My pick is Ateba Gautier. My pick is Ateba Gautier. Ateba is crisp. You see his boxing, he has crispy, fast, powerful boxing. He's pretty much the middleweight version of Francis Ngannou. I believe they come from the same country. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But he's 6'4". He's a powerful powerhouse. He hits like an absolute truck, just like Francis Ngannou. But when you're talking about Robert Valentine, he's no slouch. He hits really hard too. He's dangerous, and it's crazy to say that Robert Valentine he's about to be 0-3 in the UFC after this fight, and he'll probably get cut soon. But it's crazy to say that because he's just been getting fed really tough contenders. He's getting matched up with really tough matchups just really early in his career. But that's what happens when you get into the UFC, right? You kind of fed to the wolves and you kind of have to prove yourself. Whereas some other superstars, they tend to get favorable matchups. Not this guy, Robert Valentin. He's getting fed to the top of the division right away. Top of the division as in future top contenders. Just really tough matchups. And although this is the first time in Robert Valentine's UFC career where he doesn't have an opponent who's looking to smother him with the grappling, this is the first time that they're giving him someone in the UFC who prefers to strike. But that still doesn't favor him because they gave him a Francis Ngannou type of striker. You know, Robert Valentine, he finally got what he wanted, which was a striker. But this is one of the cleanest punchers I've ever seen. I think the UFC clearly don't like this guy, Robert, for whatever reason, right? But they're giving him absolutely horrible matchups for him, and I think they just want him gone ASAP. No. Can you close the door? Did you unlock it? Okay. Leave, please. The pick is Ateba Gautier versus Robert Valentine. I just think Ateba hits very hard. He's very big. The Francis Ngannou of middleweight, and Valentin, he's tough, but he's being fed to monsters, and the UFC want him out. So the pick is Ateba, and I sense a knockout coming in this matchup. Moving on, we have Francis Prado versus Nikolay Veretennikov. So both of these guys are on a two-fight losing streak. Nikolay, he's 0-2 in the UFC, and we have Francisco, who is 1-3 in the UFC, losing his debut and the last two fights that he's been in. So my pick is going to be Francisco to win this fight because not only has he proven he can get Owen in the UFC, but he's 23 years old. He's a kid with a lot of potential, I would say, right? Still learning versus an aging 35-year-old veteran that really doesn't belong in the UFC. And he doesn't fight like he's UFC level. So I think the activity level will favor Francisco and he will out volume him and just do more work over the course of 3 rounds. So yeah, I'm picking Francisco. He's only 23 years old, already has a UFC win, and he's more active. Um, and he will be more active in the fight. He'll outvolume him. Where you have Nikolay, who's just 0-2 in the UFC. He looks slow. He doesn't look like he belongs here. He's aging. So I just think Francisco Prado will outwork him in this matchup. And pretty straightforward pick for me. You know, we still have a lot to. Still have a lot more learning to see where Francisco's future in the UFC lies. You know, maybe he's one of these guys that loses early and then picks up the pace in his career and start getting wins, start getting notable wins, and maybe we won't see him get cut, or he might get cut. You know, we really don't know much about him because he's still early. Whereas you have Nikolai, who's we know that like his time in the UFC is done. You know, it never even really began. But yeah, the pick is Francisco. Moving on. So next fight we do have Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori. My pick is gonna be Brendan Allen to win this fight. Brendan Allen is a good fighter. We know he's a dog and can fight through moments when he has to, right? Marvin is a dog too. He can scrap. Both men coming off of two back-to-back losses, and Brendan Allen, he's only losing to Anthony Hernandez, Nasruddin Imamov, which isn't bad at all, and Marvin Vettori. He's losing to Roman Dolidze and Jared Cannonier. So both of their losses are to good contenders. You know, when it comes to skill versus skill, I really think Brendan might have the edge in this one. I think he'll mix it up more with his kicks. I think he'll be able to control the pace. I think he'll outland Marvin Vettori. And I don't think we are going to ever see the Marvin that fought for a title once in his career. And I just think he's on a decline right now. And his state of mind isn't where it should be to be competing at the top of the division. I just don't think he has that same mindset. I don't think he's as motivated to compete at a high level anymore. Where Brendan feels like he still has hope to become a champion. He seems like he wants it more and he's more motivated to get there. So I just think Brandon, he'll outdog Marvin. He'll want it more than him. And in this one, it could be a close fight, at the start. But towards the end, I think Brandon will win the later rounds pretty convincingly. That's why I'm picking him to win this fight. He has more tools to win, and I just like his mindset better. And as a fighter, he's still evolving. Where we have Vittori, who's a tough fighter, but he's declining, in my opinion, and he's not improving the way he should to be competing at the top of the division. So I'm going with Brendan Allen to win this fight late with pressure, and that's my pick for this fight. We have next fight on the card. We have Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. Look, personally, I think Vinicius is going to smoke Kyler Phillips. The odds for this fight, they're a lot closer than I think they should be. I think it makes sense seeing Vinicius. He's sitting at a minus 180 right now. That makes sense. But in my opinion, I just think this is going to be pretty easy work for Vinicius. I'm not impressed at all with what we've seen from Kyler Phillips in his UFC career. Whereas Vinny, he's been looking good, and the shape that he's in coming into this fight, he seems super locked in. He seems super well prepared for this fight. And the only time we've seen Vinny in trouble in the UFC, keep in mind he's undefeated right now in the UFC. No one has beat him yet in the UFC, right? But outside of the UFC, we've seen him get into trouble when it comes to power strikers, guys with really heavy hands. And we know if you don't knock him out, he's going to still come forward. We know that about him. He's super durable and he can take shots from you. But if you don't put him out, he's still coming forward. He still has the power to just shut your lights out. And I don't think Kyler Phillips is going to be the one to knock out Vinicius with a slick counter or anything like that. Kyler's looking to get this fight on the ground. His stand up, I believe it's not anywhere close to Vinicius's. So that being said, this should be Vinny all day, and I'm surprised that he isn't really a bigger favorite. He has 3 wins in the UFC, which are really impressive victories. He has wins. Vinny has wins over Ricky Simon, Saeed Nurmagomedov, Bernardo Sopai. These are very notable oppositions. So, and then you have Kyler Phillips, who just gassed out in after round 1 in his last fight. I'm taking Vinicius to win this fight, remain undefeated in the UFC. Already has 3 big wins. He's dangerous everywhere the fight goes. And Kyler, just from what we've seen from him, especially in his last performance, just gassed out early. He's very inconsistent. And he doesn't have that threat of a knockout power that is pretty much Vinicius's only weakness, is to completely shut his lights out. So I'm picking Vinicius because I just believe he'll be the cleaner, more dangerous striker out of the two, and I think that he's going to dominate this fight. Next fight on the card, we have Daniel Zellhuber versus Michael Johnson. Yeah, I mean, what even is this? I'm picking Daniel Zellhuber to win this fight. Michael Johnson, he's such a wild card. Some nights he looks really good. He looks great some nights. Other nights he looks like he doesn't know how to fight at all. But with Daniel, he's been consistent in his performances. Even in his losses to good competition, he still comes out looking like a good prospect in those fights. So we know what we're going to get out of him, you know? And despite the consistency from Daniel and the inconsistency from Michael, if Daniel were to come into this fight unprepared for whatever reason, and Michael comes in with a sharp game plan and he's looking great, the athleticism difference is going to play a big part in this fight because Daniel is 13 years younger. Physically, there's a big difference too. He's way longer, way taller, more athletic, and Michael he's going to have a hard time with the youth of Daniel, the athleticism from Daniel, the elusiveness from Daniel, and probably one of the most confident picks on this card. How can you not pick Daniel Zellhuber in this fight? Michael Johnson is legit 40 years old right now from fighting a dude in his 20s who's going to be much more skilled than him and have every physical advantage that you can name. I see Daniel taking this one pretty convincingly. Just way younger, 13 years younger, longer, a lot more consistent in his performances. You know, MJ, Michael Johnson, he's a wild card. He can look great, he can look terrible. He comes out looking great, it still won't matter. You have Daniel with much better skills and he has the youth to compete with someone who's on the level of Michael Johnson. Pretty easy win, I would say, for Daniel Zellhuber. Next fight on the card, we have Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. I actually really wanted to pick. Um, I really wanted to pick Pitbull here, but I'm going with Dan Ige. You know, Pitbull, his time in the UFC, it's done. It sadly never even began. He came in way too late. He never had a chance to showcase his skills when he was in his prime in the UFC, right? So, and he Pitbull, he just fought a tall, rangy fighter in Yair Rodriguez, where he had a hard time closing the distance. But in this matchup, I wanted to pick him because he's not going to have that problem closing the distance, right? Because I don't think the length is going to be a problem here for Pitbull. I really think this fight it has potential to be close. Despite Pitbull being 38 years old, fighting a very skilled 33-year-old in Dan Ige, I think this has fight of the night potential. This is fun because Dan Ige, he likes to come forward with that pressure, heavy boxing pressure, right? And both men carry decent power in their arsenal, right? So I do think Dan Ige will be the one landing the better shots here. He'll be way more durable in there as he has never been finished by knockout or submission his whole career. I think he'll be able to control the pace, he'll manage the distance, he'll dictate where this fight goes, and it'll still be a fun fight. But I have no doubt that Ige will come out on top here. I just think Pitbull is done. He got thrown into the wolves as soon as he came into the UFC, which is what you would ask for if you're 38 years old, been fighting outside of the promotion for your whole life. You want a chance to prove yourself when you finally do get into the UFC. if you think you're on that level. But it's a different ball game when you come into the UFC, and Dan Ige is going to prove that. He's very durable, very consistent, and I think he'll be able to set the pace in this one. Where Pitbull, it's too late for him in the UFC. He's past his prime. I just see Ige being the sharper, fresher fighter. I think he wins this one pretty clearly and a fun fight. Pick is Dan Ige. Next fight on the card, we have Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I think it's an easy win for Kevin Holland. I really do. Easy win here for Kevin Holland. He's going to be more faster, more athletic, just more swag, more everything. I'm calling a third round knockout here for Kevin Holland. He's 32, fighting much older 38-year-old Daniel Rodriguez, who seems to be aging. I see Kevin just being quicker here, landing the punch before Daniel does, and I see him being elusive in there. He's gonna be moving out of the way, having fun in there, talking like he usually does, and I just don't see him getting hit, especially not cleanly here versus Daniel Rodriguez. This should be Kevin all day. I just think he's gonna be flashier, having fun in there, faster. I just think he has more tools to win. I think he has better cardio than Daniel, who is just slowing down right now. He's hittable. He's aging. So my pick is going to be Kevin Holland, third round knockout. Next fight on the card, we have the co-main event: Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. My pick is going to be Roman Kopylov. I'm picking Roman Kopylov. At first when I saw the odds for this fight, I was pretty surprised to see Roman as more than a 2-1 favorite. But after thinking about it, it started making sense. Paulo Costa, he's very pressure heavy with his boxing. He comes forward with aggressive punches. And we've seen Roman be able to deal with that style, like his fight with Cesar Almeida. In that fight with Roman Kopylov and Cesar Almeida, Roman, he was kind of dancing around the cage, landing nice shots whenever he felt like it. But throughout the fight, he was getting takedowns on Cesar Almeida, especially late in the third round. He was getting a bit fatigued and he had to keep shooting for takedowns on Caesar to neutralize the power coming back from Caesar, right? So in that fight, he would just take him down and pretty much do nothing because of how tired he was. Then the referee actually had to stand them up, and Roman was getting the takedowns again, showing how poor Caesar's takedown defense was. So if the same thing happens here and Roman gets tired from dancing around the cage, I'm not so sure that he will have success in getting Paulo Costa down towards the later rounds. I can see Costa coming back after losing the first round, stuffing any takedown attempts from Roman and landing the heavier shots on Roman during the later rounds. Because Roman, when he strikes, he puts a lot of pressure. I mean, he puts a lot of power into every shot that he throws. Like, he is really throwing with dangerous intent to knock your lights out or to kick the air out of your stomach with every strike that he throws. Like, you can really hear the thud in his shots. But that takes energy. And if you don't knock your opponent out and he's still coming forward, you're going to need to take him down. However, in his last fight, Roman, he did look good. I thought he looked good versus Chris Curtis. He landed that last second controversial knockout where he dropped Curtis with that head kick and the referee instantly stopped it. But he showed that he was still putting that power, carrying that power in the later rounds. But Chris isn't really a heavy striker. He's not very powerful with his strikes. Chris kind of just likes to, you know, be slick and touch you up. Paulo Costa is coming to rip your head off, right? Kind of like Cesar Almeida. So I still believe that Roman Kopylov, he learned not to gas himself out by throwing all the heavy shots early, trying to knock out the opponent. Because we kind of saw that from him in his last fight. And striking versus striking, I think Roman is the better striker. I feel like Paulo Costa, he's kind of shown to be kind of a jokester in the UFC. You know, he's in there, and I just don't think he takes it as seriously as Roman does. In his last 5 fights, Paulo Costa is 1-4 in his last five, and his only win being to Luke Rockhold 3 years ago, and he loses to the guys at the top of the division like Izzy, Whitaker, Vettori, Strickland. He lost to those four guys, so I think Roman can get this done, but he needs to be efficient in his cardio. He can't go out there thinking he's just going to run through Costa or knock him out within the first couple of shots that he throws. I can see him landing more effectively. And the thing is about this fight is Paulo, he doesn't do well with forward pressure, like Strickland, how he kind of just kept putting pressure on him, having Paulo Costa on the back foot. Roman, he doesn't really like to kind of move forward. He kind of likes to move around and lets you chase him. But the thing about Roman is he will act like he's moving around and instantly jump in, time a shot that will land out of nowhere, like he did in his fight versus that Cesar Almeida. And he has serious power when he does that. Then he'll go back to having you chase him. But Roman needs that shot. He needs to gain that respect early from Paulo Costa, so Paulo Costa doesn't get comfortable walking him down. Because if Paulo Costa isn't met with any big shots coming back, this could be a bad night for Roman. I just think Roman will land that shot that will gain respect from Paulo, and he won't be as eager to walk him down. I don't think he'll be eager to walk down Roman Kopylov because personally, I think after getting knocked out by Israel Adesanya, Paulo Costa has been very respectable towards his opponents in terms of power, because he doesn't want to get dropped like that ever again. But that kind of made him very hesitant to throw, especially when the other person shows him that, yeah, I do have the power to knock your lights out. He becomes very timid, and he it kind of interrupts his rhythm. So I think Roman will land that shot, but he needs to pace himself in this fight. For out of the 3 rounds, I think Roman can outstrike him. I think he can win at least the first two, enough to survive late in the third, hold him up against the fence if he has to, if he can't get the takedowns on Paulo Costa, land more efficiently than Paulo Costa, and Roman Kopylov, he's a good fighter. He's very capable to be a top contender. He's he's the real deal. He has very clean striking, really good fight IQ. He knows when to go for a takedown. When he has you thinking about the punches coming back, he'll surprise you with a takedown. He hits really hard too. I just think he needs to manage his cardio in this matchup to win, but I do think he wins versus Costa, who's very pressure heavy, but he's not the same fighter that we first saw when he came into the UFC. 1-4 in his last five, and if he can't hurt you, he tends to fade. He tends to slow down. He becomes very hesitant when he feels that power coming back to him. So yeah, as long as Roman Kopylov manages his cardio, I think he can win this fight, landing the more significant strikes, the one that have more impact out of the two. And I think he has a very high fight IQ, knowing when to switch levels and go for a takedown. So the pick is going to be Roman Kopylov. Next fight, we have the main event. We have Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. I'm going Dustin Poirier. I'm obviously going Dustin Poirier. Did we not see the last time what happened the last time they fought? You think DP in his retirement fight, he's going out like a punk in his retirement fight? Like, that's not my only reasoning why I'm picking Dustin Poirier. But out of the two, Dustin Poirier, he's definitely the harder hitter. The last time we saw him, he went to war with one of the best pound for pound fighters we have in the world right now in Islam Makhachev, where he bloodied him up, he cut his face up badly, and then got subbed in the fifth round to one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Yes, you can say that Dustin Poirier, he got KO'd by Gaethje, but Gaethje's a heavy hitter as well with very powerful strikes. We know Max Holloway isn't going to land that big knockout shot like that on Poirier. Within the shot exchanges out of the two, Poirier is going to obviously be landing way more efficiently. The impact is going, the impact of Dustin is going to have way more effect than Holloway's volume punches. When Holloway knocked out the people he's knocked out, like Justin Gaethje or the Asian fella, forgot his name, but when he knocks him out, it comes after an accumulation of strikes. It comes when he's landed, out volumed you for a duration of the fight when you're super tired and you're super weak and you have no power left, you have no cardio left to move on. That's when he's able to knock you out. Where Dustin can do that whenever he wants, pretty much. He holds power from the start to the last round. If Max Holloway doesn't break down Dustin Poirier is still gonna be there, standing, coming forward. And I just don't think Max Holloway is going to be able to just outland him every single in every single punch exchange that they have. You know, once Dustin lands, it's going to have a big impact on Max versus when Dustin Poirier lands. Dustin Poirier, he was just asking to fight Ilia Topuria. If that's where his head is at, that he's willing to take that fight as his retirement fight, he has the courage to call out someone like Ilia Topuria, and then he gets Max Holloway instead. That's a huge step down in who he was asking to fight, and he was preparing himself to fight someone at the caliber of Ilia Topuria. Like let's just take a look at Dustin Dustin Poirier's last couple of fights. Let's look at his resume. Starting from 2019, he beats Max Holloway. That was the last time he fought Max Holloway. He beats Max Holloway pretty dominantly, right? He then loses to Khabib by submission. After that, he destroys Dan Hooker in a very fun fight. Then he knocks out Conor McGregor back to back. He drops Charles Oliveira and then he gets submitted. He defeats Chandler. And then he got caught by a kick from Justin Gaethje, who's probably the hardest hitter out of anyone I just named. He destroys Benoit Saint Denis with a brutal knockout. And then he goes to war with one of the best pound for pound greatest fighters of all time, cutting him up and bruising him up before getting submitted. Dustin Poirier is a really good fighter, you know. Max, he can take a shot. He can definitely take a shot, but with those big shots landing on him over and over again, it will slow him down. It will bruise him up. I can see this fight playing out similarly to the last time that we saw these two gentlemen fight. And you can say Max Holloway did just knock out Justin Gaethje before his last fight, right? But that was in the fifth round where Gaethje was gassed and he had no cardio left after getting tagged up for most of the fights. I just don't see getting I just don't see Dustin getting touched up like that for the whole duration of the fight. Max's shots, they'll land, but they won't have the same effect on Dustin as Dustin's shots will have on Max. And essentially, that's just what it comes down to for me. Max, he'll land his shots, but they won't have they won't be as effective as Poirier shots. And Not to mention, this is taking place in Dustin Poirier's hometown in Louisiana. You know, it's his retirement fight. Like he's putting his all into this fight, fighting in his home crowd. Crowd. I just think he holds more power. Obviously, his resume speaks for itself, and he has the hometown boost. The crowd's gonna be on his side. It'll probably persuade the judging if it does go to the scorecards, right? But you have Max Holloway who just has high volume, but I just think the damage in their shots, Dustin will have the clear advantage in this one, right? So I'm picking Dustin Poirier. I think he retires on top. It's a repeat win for him. I already beat him twice. It's gonna be 3 times. It's gonna be 3-0 over Max Holloway, and I just think his power will carry him to this win here. His durability and his strength. I think it's enough to beat Max Holloway for the third time. So the pick is going to be Dustin Poirier. That brings it to the end. If you made it this far, you're a real one. If you watched every single one, you're a real one. Anyways, drop your picks in the comments. Let me know if you agree, disagree with any of the fights I predicted. So, yeah, if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. I'll probably do a best bets video for this one, where I would say who's my most confident picks. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you on the next one. Peace.